You tamed our apex predator? Alien girl shocked as human befriends a deadly beast. The dropship's engines roared as it descended through the thick atmosphere of Nebulon 6, a planet on the outer rim that most star charts labeled simply as unexplored. Commander Riker Davis stood at the viewport, watching as the dense jungle canopy rushed up to meet them, his weathered face reflected in the glass, a face that had seen too many battles and not enough peace. 2 minutes to touchdown, Commander, the pilot announced. Riker adjusted the straps on his tactical vest, leaving his muscular arms bare. The jungle heat would be brutal, and he'd learned long ago to dress for the environment, not for appearances. Though if he was being honest with himself, the tribal ink that wrapped around his biceps tended to make an impression on the locals of primitive worlds. "Remember," said Admiral Holt through the comms, "this is strictly reconnaissance. The Galactic Federation needs intel on the Lumina tribe before we decide whether to establish a permanent outpost." "Copy that," Riker replied, though he'd heard the same briefing 3 times already. "Get in, make nice with the natives. Don't start any interplanetary incidents. And for God's sake, Davis, try not to seduce any alien princesses this time." Riker grinned. "That was one time, sir, and technically she was a duchess." The ship touched down with a soft thud in a small clearing. As the bay doors hissed open, a wall of humid air rushed in, carrying the scent of alien flora and the distant calls of creatures Riker couldn't identify. He grabbed his pack and stepped onto the soil of Nebulon 6. "I'll check in at 0800 tomorrow," he said into his wrist communicator. "Davis out." The dropship lifted off behind him, leaving him alone in the clearing. According to his intel, the Lumina village was less than 3 kilometers northeast. He activated his nav system and began the trek. The jungle was alive around him, vines that seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat, flowers that tracked his movement like curious eyes, and the occasional rustle in the underbrush that made him rest his hand on his sidearm. But nothing attacked, and after an hour of hiking, he caught his first glimpse of the village through the trees. The structures were organic-looking, grown rather than built, with glowing bioluminescent patterns adorning their surfaces. As Riker approached the village perimeter, he noticed the guards, tall, lithe figures with turquoise skin that shimmered in the dappled sunlight. "Halt!" one called out in surprisingly good standard. "Identify yourself, outsider." Riker raised his hands in a universal gesture of peace. "Commander Riker Davis, Galactic Federation. I come with greetings and an offer of friendship." The guards exchanged glances, their luminescent markings pulsing slightly. "The chief was expecting a Federation envoy," the lead guard said finally. "Follow me." As Riker was escorted through the village, he felt dozens of curious eyes on him. The Lumina were humanoid, but with distinct differences. Besides their turquoise skin and bioluminescent markings, they had slightly elongated limbs and features that seemed almost feline in their grace. One pair of eyes in particular caught his attention. A female stood at the entrance of what appeared to be the largest structure in the village. Her silvery hair cascaded over her shoulders, and her markings glowed more intensely than those of the others. When their eyes met, she didn't look away but held his gaze with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. The chief, a broad-shouldered male with elaborate markings across his chest, welcomed Riker with surprising warmth. "Commander Davis," he said, extending his arms in greeting. "I am Chief Thalos of the Lumina. We have heard tales of humans, but have never hosted one in our village. This is a historic day." "The honor is mine," Riker replied, bowing slightly. "The Federation hopes to establish peaceful relations with your people." "As do we," Thalos said. "You will stay with us and learn our ways. My daughter Anoya will show you to your quarters." The female with the silver hair stepped forward, and Riker realized she was the one who had been watching him. Up close, her blue eyes were even more striking, like the deepest parts of Earth's oceans. "This way, Commander," she said, her voice cool and formal. As they walked, Riker could feel the tension radiating from her. "You don't approve of my being here," he stated rather than asked. Anoya glanced at him. "My father is too trusting of outsiders. The last visitors to our world took without asking. Why should you be different?" "Because I'm asking," Riker said with a small smile, "and because I understand the value of respect." She led him to a small but comfortable dwelling at the edge of the village. "Rest. Tomorrow you will begin to learn about us." She turned to leave but paused. "And Commander, our jungle has many dangers. Do not wander alone." With that warning, she left him to settle in. Riker watched her go, intrigued by her caution and the mystery behind those ocean blue eyes. This assignment might be more interesting than he'd anticipated. As night fell, the bioluminescent patterns of the village structures intensified, bathing everything in a soft blue glow. From his doorway, Riker heard a distant roar that made the hairs on his neck stand up. Something large and predatory stalked the jungle beyond the village boundaries. He smiled to himself. Danger had never been something he ran from. Dawn broke over Nebulon 6 with a symphony of alien birdsong. Riker woke early, the mysterious roar from the previous night still echoing in his mind. Federation protocol dictated he should spend the day establishing diplomatic relations. But something about that primal sound called to him. He slipped out of his quarters before most of the village had stirred, his tactical pants and vest blending with the early morning shadows. The jungle welcomed him with its humid embrace, dew-laden leaves brushing against his bare arms as he moved silently through the underbrush. Riker followed his instincts, heading toward a small stream he'd spotted on his approach to the village. If this world was anything like others he'd explored, predators would frequent water sources in the early morning. The jungle thinned as he approached the stream, revealing a small clearing bathed in the golden light of dawn. And there, lapping at the water's edge, was the most magnificent creature Riker had ever seen. It resembled an earth tiger in form, but everything else about it was alien. Its fur shimmered with an ethereal pale blue glow, rippling like liquid starlight with each movement. The beast was massive, easily twice the size of an earth tiger, with 6 muscular legs and a tail that split into 2 prehensile appendages. Its eyes, when it raised its head to scent the air, were a deep violet that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. Riker remained perfectly still, not out of fear but respect. He'd encountered enough predators across the galaxy to know that sudden movements were universally unwelcome. The creature turned its head directly toward his hiding spot, nostrils flaring. Instead of retreating, Riker made a decision that would have had his commanding officers questioning his sanity. He stepped into the clearing, palms open at his sides. "Hello there," he said softly, his voice calm and steady. "You're quite the beauty, aren't you?" The beast growled, a sound that vibrated through Riker's chest. Its muscles tensed, ready to pounce or flee. Riker slowly lowered himself to one knee, maintaining eye contact. "I'm not here to hurt you, just passing through your territory." To his surprise, the creature's growl softened. It took a tentative step forward, then another, its massive head tilting in curiosity. "That's it," Riker encouraged. "Just getting to know the neighbors." When the beast was merely 2 meters away, it stopped, its violet eyes studying him intently. Riker remained still, his breathing even, his posture non-threatening. Then in a move that defied all logic, he extended his hand, palm up. The creature sniffed the air, then moved forward to sniff his hand directly. Its breath was warm against his skin, carrying the scent of the jungle and something metallic. "You're not so scary," Riker murmured. "Just misunderstood, I bet." As if understanding his words, the beast made a rumbling sound deep in its throat. Not a growl, but something almost like a purr. It pushed its massive head against Riker's hand. Riker laughed in delight as he began to stroke the creature's fur, which felt like silk beneath his fingers. "Well, I'll be damned. Ooh, by the sacred moons!" The shocked exclamation came from behind him. Riker turned to see Anoya standing at the edge of the clearing, her blue eyes wide with disbelief, her bioluminescent markings pulsing rapidly with what he assumed was fear or alarm. "You tamed our apex predator?" she gasped, her voice barely above a whisper. The beast, which Riker now realized must be the Azure Phantom he'd heard mentioned in his briefings, tensed at the newcomer but didn't flee. Instead, it pressed closer to Riker, as if seeking reassurance. "I think he's just lonely," Riker said with a small, easy smile. "Like all of us." Something in Anoya's expression shifted at his words. She took a cautious step forward, then another. The Azure Phantom has killed dozens of our hunters, she said, her voice trembling slightly. It's been the terror of our tribe for generations. Riker continued to stroke the creature's fur. Maybe he was just protecting his territory, or maybe he was afraid. The Phantom rumbled contentedly under his touch, its dual tails swishing lazily. How did you do this? Anoya asked, now standing just a few paces away. Our bravest warriors have tried to kill it for centuries. That might be your answer right there, Riker said. I didn't approach him as something to be conquered or killed, just as another being sharing this world. Anoya's gaze moved from the beast to Riker, seeing him with new eyes. Her markings shifted from a pulsing alarm to a softer, steadier glow. You are not what I expected, Commander. Riker, he corrected with a warm smile. And what did you expect? She moved closer, her silvery hair catching the morning light. Arrogance, aggression? The previous outsiders who came to our world displayed both in abundance. Not all humans are the same, Riker said, just as I imagine not all Lumina are the same. The Azure Phantom, seemingly content with the attention, settled down beside Riker, its massive body relaxed. Anoya watched in amazement as Riker casually leaned against the creature's flank. Would you like to join us? He asked, patting the ground beside him. Hesitation flickered across her face, but curiosity won out. She approached slowly and sat beside him, her body tense. He won't hurt you, Riker assured her. Here. He took her hand. Her skin was surprisingly warm against his, and guided it to the Phantom's fur. The creature tensed momentarily, then relaxed as Anoya's fingers tentatively stroked its shimmering coat. Her face transformed with wonder, her markings glowing with a new pattern Riker hadn't seen before. This is impossible, she whispered, but her smile betrayed her delight. As they sat together in the morning light, the fearsome predator purring between them, Riker became acutely aware of Anoya's proximity. The scent of her, something like cinnamon and starlight, filled his senses. When their eyes met over the Phantom's back, the air between them seemed to charge with an energy that had nothing to do with fear or diplomacy. By midday, word of Riker's encounter with the Azure Phantom had spread through the village like wildfire. As he and Anoya returned from the jungle, the Lumina stopped their daily activities to stare, their bioluminescent markings flickering with a mixture of awe and disbelief. They're afraid, Riker observed quietly, noticing how the villagers kept their distance. And not afraid, Anoya corrected, her shoulder occasionally brushing against his as they walked. Astounded. The Azure Phantom has been our tribe's greatest terror for generations. My great-grandfather lost his life to its claws, as did many of our strongest hunters. Chief Thalos emerged from his dwelling, his expression unreadable as he approached them. Is it true, he asked, his deep voice carrying across the suddenly silent village square. You made contact with the Azure One? Riker nodded. We did. He's not the monster your people believe him to be. A murmur rippled through the gathering crowd. From their midst, a tall, heavily scarred Lumina male stepped forward. Unlike the others, whose markings pulsed with curiosity, his blazed with unmistakable anger. This outsider makes a mockery of our traditions, he declared, pointing an accusatory finger at Riker. The Azure Phantom has claimed the lives of our bravest warriors, including my brother, and now this, human claims to have tamed it like a common pet? Korath, Anoya addressed him, her posture straightening defensively. Commander Davis meant no disrespect. The beast responded to respect, Riker interjected calmly. Not fear, not aggression. Perhaps that's why your hunters failed. Korath's markings flared brighter. You dare suggest our hunters lacked courage? Not courage, Riker replied. Perspective. Chief Thalos raised his hand, silencing the growing murmurs. Korath, your grief for your brother is understood by all. But if the outsider has found a way to approach the Azure One without bloodshed, this could change everything for our people. Or bring the beast directly to our doorstep, Korath countered. What happens when it follows its new friend into our village? How many more will die then? The crowd's anxiety was palpable, their markings pulsing in rapid, discordant patterns. I would never endanger your people, Riker said firmly. The Phantom remained in his territory. He has no interest in the village. Korath scoffed. You claim to know the mind of a beast after one encounter? Our hunters have tracked it for generations. Perhaps that's exactly why Commander Davis succeeded where others failed. Anoia suggested, her voice gaining strength. He approached without the history of conflict that clouds our interactions with the Azure One. Riker glanced at her, surprised and touched by her defense. Their eyes met briefly, and the intensity in her gaze sent a wave of warmth through his body that had nothing to do with the jungle heat. Chief Thalos considered this. There is wisdom in my daughter's words. Tonight we will hold council to discuss this development. Until then, Commander, I ask that you refrain from further expeditions to the beast territory. Of course, Riker agreed with a respectful nod. As the crowd dispersed, Korath approached Riker, stopping close enough that Riker could see the intricate patterns of his facial markings. Our ways are not yours, outsider. The Azure Phantom is not some puzzle to be solved by your Federation curiosity. It is a killer, and those who forget that end up dead. With that warning, he stalked away, leaving Riker and Anoia alone in the village square. I apologize for Korath, Anoia said softly. His brother's death left deep wounds. No apology needed, Riker replied. I understand loss. Anoia studied him, her head tilted slightly. You are surprising, Riker Davis. Most outsiders we've encountered have tried to impose their understanding on our world. You seem to seek understanding instead. The way she said his name sent another pleasant shiver down his spine. That's the whole point of exploration, he said with a small smile. Not to conquer, but to learn. She led him toward a secluded area near the edge of the village, where a small stream created a natural boundary between the settlement and the jungle. The afternoon sun filtered through the canopy, casting dappled light across her turquoise skin, making her markings shimmer like stars. Our council will debate for hours, she said, sitting gracefully on a smooth stone beside the water. Some will fear change, others will embrace it. This is our way. Riker sat beside her, acutely aware of how their bodies nearly touched. And which are you, Anoia? One who fears change or embraces it? Her blue eyes met his, unblinking. I have always been cautious of outsiders, but today, her markings shifted to a pattern he hadn't seen before. A slow, rhythmic pulsing that seemed to emanate from her core. Today I saw something impossible become possible. The Phantom? Yes. And she hesitated, her gaze dropping to his lips for the briefest moment. And the way you approached him, without weapons, without fear, it was beautiful. The air between them seemed to charge with electricity. Riker felt drawn to her in a way that transcended diplomatic protocol or even basic caution. There was something in her eyes and the way her markings pulsed that spoke a language his body understood, even if his mind couldn't translate it. In my culture, he said, his voice lower than before, we have a saying, fear closes doors, courage opens them. In our culture, she replied, leaning slightly closer, we believe that when two souls recognize each other, the universe itself takes notice. Her hand moved to rest lightly on his forearm, her touch sending a jolt of electricity through his system. The markings on her fingers glowed brighter where they contacted his skin. And what happens then? Riker asked, his heart racing as he leaned imperceptibly closer. Then, Anoia whispered, her breath warm against his face, we honor that recognition. The distance between them vanished as their lips met, tentatively at first, then with growing certainty. Her mouth was warm, her taste exotic, like nothing Riker had experienced before. Where their skin touched, her bioluminescent markings glowed with increasing intensity, casting a soft blue light that enveloped them both. The council chamber hummed with tension as the Lumina elders gathered in a circular formation, their markings pulsing in agitated patterns. Riker stood in the center beside Chief Thalos while Anoia watched from her designated place among the female advisors. The kiss they had shared hours earlier still lingered on Riker's lips, a secret warmth amid the growing hostility in the chamber. The outsider claims to have tamed the Azure Phantom, Chief Thalos announced, his deep voice resonating through the organic structure. This could herald a new era of safety for our people. Korath stepped forward, his scarred face set in grim determination. Or it could be a deception. Words are easy, Chief. Actions prove truth. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. "What would you have me do?" Riker asked, meeting Korath's challenging stare. "Prove your bond with the beast," Korath declared. "Bring the Azure Phantom to the village edge at dawn. Let our people see this miracle for themselves." Gasps and exclamations filled the chamber. Even Chief Thalos looked troubled by the suggestion. "You ask the impossible," an elder protested. "The beast would slaughter us all." "Exactly," Korath replied with a cold smile. "Unless our visitor truly has the power he claims." Riker felt Enoya's gaze on him, saw the concern in her eyes. Their connection, so new and fragile, hung in the balance alongside his mission. "I accept," Riker said firmly, "but I won't endanger your people. I'll bring the Phantom to the clearing beyond the eastern boundary, close enough to observe, far enough for safety." Before further debate could erupt, a commotion outside interrupted the council. A young Lumina scout burst into the chamber, his markings flashing in alarm patterns. "Forgive the intrusion, Chief," he gasped. "Strange vessels have landed in the northern valley, metal-skinned outsiders with machines that tear at the earth. They've established a perimeter and are advancing toward the Phantom's territory." The council erupted in chaos. Chief Thalos raised his hands for silence. "How many?" he demanded. "At least 30, the scout replied. "With weapons unlike any we've seen." Riker's jaw tightened. "Mining corporation," he muttered. "Probably Nexus Industries. They've been pushing into uncharted systems, stripping resources without Federation approval." "You knew of this?" Korath accused. "No," Riker answered sharply. "But I know their type. They won't respect your territorial claims or your customs. To them, this planet is just another asset to exploit." Chief Thalos turned to Riker, his expression grave. "What would these outsiders want with the Azure Phantom's territory?" Probably not the Phantom itself," Riker explained, "but something beneath the surface. Minerals, rare elements. Something valuable enough to justify an unauthorized expedition." The implications settled over the assembly like a shadow. Whatever the corporation sought, their presence threatened not just the village, but the delicate ecosystem of Nebulon 6. "We must prepare defenses," Korath declared, momentarily setting aside his animosity toward Riker. "And I still intend to meet my challenge," Riker added. "The Phantom may be key to understanding what's happening. These corporations don't just randomly select dig sites." As the council dispersed to prepare, Enoya approached Riker, her markings pulsing in a pattern he was beginning to recognize as concern. "Two impossible tasks in one day," she said softly. "Even for a human, that seems ambitious." Riker smiled, resisting the urge to touch her in front of the others. "I've faced worse odds." "Have you?" Her eyes searched his. "Well, no," he admitted with a low chuckle. "But confidence is half the battle." They walked together toward his quarters, the village around them buzzing with preparations. Under the guise of strategic planning, they slipped inside, and the moment the door closed, Enoya was in his arms, her mouth finding his with urgent need. "This is madness," she whispered against his lips, her markings glowing intensely where their bodies pressed together. "Korath has set you an impossible task, and now these new outsiders—" "I'll handle both," Riker promised, his hands tracing the luminescent patterns along her spine, marveling at how they brightened at his touch. "In my culture," Enoya said, drawing back slightly to meet his gaze, "when we face great danger, we believe in bonding our life energy with those we care for. It strengthens both spirits for the challenges ahead." Her meaning was clear in the way her body arched against his, in the heat of her gaze. Riker cupped her face gently. "And in my culture," he replied, his voice husky with desire, "we have similar beliefs about facing the unknown with someone special." Their lips met again, more urgently this time. Clothing fell away as they discovered each other's bodies, her skin glowing brighter with each caress, his muscles tensing under her exploring touch. The differences between their species became points of fascination rather than division, each new discovery drawing gasps of pleasure and wonder. In the dim light of his quarters, as the sounds of the village preparing for potential conflict filtered through the walls, they found a moment of perfect unity. Their bodies moved together in an ancient rhythm that transcended species and star systems, her bioluminescence bathing them in a pulsing blue glow that matched the cadence of their passion. Afterward, they lay entwined, her head resting on his chest as he traced the now softly glowing patterns across her shoulder. "Your markings," Riker murmured. "They changed during our bonding." Anoya propped herself up on one elbow, her silvery hair cascading over her bare shoulder. "They reveal our emotional state. What you saw?" She paused, a deeper blue flush spreading across her cheeks. "That pattern is rare. It appears when Illumina finds their true mate." The weight of her words settled over Riker. In the space of 2 days, he'd gone from diplomatic envoy to the potential mate of an alien chieftain's daughter, and now faced both a deadly challenge and a corporate threat. "No pressure," he said with a wry smile, pulling her close again. Outside, the distant sound of machinery echoed through the jungle, a reminder that their newfound connection would soon be tested by forces beyond their control. The jungle before dawn was a symphony of sounds and scents. Riker moved silently through the undergrowth, his senses heightened by both training and the lingering sensation of Anoya's touch on his skin. Her scent still clung to him, exotic and intoxicating, a reminder of their night together. He'd left her sleeping, reluctant to wake her after their passionate bonding. The memory of her luminescent patterns, pulsing in rhythm with their shared pleasure, brought a smile to his face even as he focused on the task ahead. The stream where he'd first encountered the azure phantom glimmered in the pre-dawn light. Riker knelt beside it, dipping his fingers into the cool water. He didn't call out or make any sudden movements, just waited, projecting calm and openness into the surrounding forest. 20 minutes passed before a rustling in the undergrowth announced the phantom's arrival. The massive predator emerged from the foliage, its pale blue fur catching the first rays of dawn, making it appear to glow from within. "Morning, big guy," Riker said softly. "I could use your help today." The beast approached cautiously, sniffing the air. When it reached Riker, it nudged his shoulder with its massive head, nearly knocking him over. "Easy there," Riker laughed, scratching behind one of its pointed ears. "I need to understand what those outsiders want with your territory." As if comprehending his words, the phantom turned and began walking deeper into the jungle, away from the stream. After a few paces, it looked back at Riker expectantly. "You want me to follow? All right, I'm game." The phantom led him through dense vegetation for nearly an hour, moving with surprising stealth for such a large creature. Eventually, they reached the edge of a steep ravine. Below, Riker could see the mining operation, prefabricated structures already established, heavy machinery carving into the earth, armed guards patrolling the perimeter. "Definitely Nexus Industries," Riker muttered, recognizing the corporate logo emblazoned on the equipment. "Moving fast, even for them." The phantom growled softly, its attention fixed on something specific. Following its gaze, Riker noticed a peculiar formation in the ravine wall, a vein of iridescent blue mineral that pulsed with a faint light, remarkably similar to the phantom's fur and the luminous markings. "That's what they're after," Riker realized. "And somehow, it's connected to you." The beast's fur bristled as a drilling machine approached the mineral vein. Its growl deepened, vibrating through the ground beneath them. "It's hurting you, isn't it?" Riker asked, noticing how the phantom's glow dimmed slightly as the drill bit into the mineral. Some kind of symbiotic relationship?" A twig snapped behind them. Riker spun around to find himself facing the barrels of 2 high-powered pulse rifles held by Nexus security personnel in sleek black armor. "Well, well," said the taller guard, his voice distorted through his helmet. "A Federation officer snooping around our operation. Corporate will want to have a word with you." The phantom crouched, ready to pounce, but Riker placed a restraining hand on his flank. "Easy," he murmured. "Not yet." "And what the hell is that thing?" the second guard asked, his rifle trained on the phantom. "Local wildlife," Riker replied casually. "Friendly unless provoked." The first guard scoffed. "You're coming with us. The animal stays here or gets put down." "I don't think either option works for me," Riker said, tensing for action. Before the confrontation could escalate, a new voice called from behind the guards. "Stand down, gentlemen. Let's be civilized." A man in an immaculate white suit emerged from the jungle, flanked by 2 more armed guards. His silver hair and aristocratic features gave him the appearance of a corporate executive from a recruitment video. "Commander Davis," he said smoothly, "your reputation precedes you. I'm Director Harlow, Nexus Industries. Your operation here is illegal. Riker stated flatly. "This planet falls under Federation protection, pending diplomatic relations with the indigenous population." Harlow smiled thinly. "Technicalities. We prefer to think of it as accelerated resource allocation. The Federation moves too slowly for business needs. You're extracting a mineral that's biologically linked to both the local predator species and the Lumina people," Riker said, gesturing toward the Phantom, which remained tense beside him. "Your mining is causing harm to both." Harlow's eyebrows rose slightly. "Fascinating observation. Our scientists suspected a connection but hadn't confirmed it. All the more reason to study this remarkable substance." "Study, not extract," Riker countered. "Commander, let's be practical," Harlow said, his tone shifting to one of forced reasonableness. "We're prepared to offer the natives significant compensation. Technology, medicine, protection, all the benefits of joining the Galactic community. Why not bring our proposal to their leadership?" The Phantom growled, as if understanding the deception in Harlow's words. "I think my friend here has a pretty clear opinion on your offer," Riker said with a grim smile. Harlow's pleasant facade cracked slightly. "That beast is nothing but an evolutionary accident. The mineral, what we're calling luminite, has applications that could benefit billions across the galaxy. Surely you can see the greater good here." "What I see is corporate greed masquerading as altruism," Riker replied. "But sure, let's take your proposal to the village. I'm curious to hear how you'll spin this." Harlow's smile returned. "Excellent. We'll dispatch a diplomatic team immediately." As they parted ways, the Phantom nudged Riker insistently, guiding him toward a different path back to the village. "You want to show me something else?" Riker asked. The beast led him to a small cave hidden behind a waterfall. Inside, the walls were lined with the same mineral, luminite, creating a breathtaking display of pulsing blue light. In the center of the cave lay a litter of phantom cubs, their fur glowing softly as they played. "Well, damn," Riker whispered. "No wonder you're so protective of this territory." One of the cubs approached Riker curiously, batting at his boot with a tiny paw. The Phantom watched, making no move to intervene, a display of trust that humbled Riker. "I won't let them take this from you," he promised, kneeling to gently stroke the cub's head. "Time to head back and meet Karath's challenge?" With a little surprise. "I've been watching you, outsider." The voice startled Riker as he prepared to leave the Phantom's cave. He turned to find Korath emerging from the shadows, spear in hand but not raised in threat. "Korath?" Riker acknowledged cautiously. "Keeping tabs on me?" "I followed to witness your failure," the hunter admitted, his markings pulsing with conflicted emotions. "Instead, I find this." He gestured toward the phantom cubs playing near the luminite-lined walls. "Now you understand why it defends this territory so fiercely," Riker said. Korath approached slowly, his eyes fixed on the cubs. "My brother died trying to kill their mother," he said softly. "He never knew." "The Phantom was protecting its family," Riker offered, "just as your brother was trying to protect yours." Something shifted in Korath's posture. "And now these mining outsiders threaten both our families." He turned to Riker with newfound resolve. "We must warn the village. Their director and representatives approach even now." They moved swiftly through the jungle, the adult Phantom keeping pace alongside them, a sight that would have been unthinkable days earlier. As they neared the village, Riker felt a strange, tingling sensation where his skin brushed against the beast's fur. "Do you feel that?" he asked Korath. The hunter nodded. "The sacred connection? Our ancestors spoke of it in the oldest tales. How the first ones communed with the Azure Guardians through the blessing of the glowing stone." "Luminite," Riker said. "It's not just a mineral, it's a conduit." As they reached the village outskirts, they found the community in an uproar. Director Harlow and his entourage had arrived, their sleek corporate attire and confident demeanor creating a stark contrast with the Lumina's organic aesthetic. Anoya spotted Riker first, her markings flaring with relief and joy. Then her eyes widened as she registered the Azure Phantom padding calmly beside him. "By the sacred moon," she breathed, rushing toward him despite the gasps of the villagers. The moment she reached him, Riker felt the connection intensify, a three-way resonance between himself, Anoya, and the Phantom. Their night together had somehow strengthened the bond, creating a circuit of energy that hummed with potential. "I can feel you," Inoya whispered, touching his face. "In my mind." "The Luminite," Riker explained quickly. "It connects all of you, the Lumina, the Phantoms. And somehow, I've become part of that connection." Korath stepped forward. "The outsider speaks truth. I have witnessed the Phantom's den, lined with the same stone these miners seek to steal. They protect their young there, as we protect ours here." Chief Thalos approached, his expression grave. "These corporate representatives offer much in exchange for mining rights. Technology, medicines, protection." "Lies," Riker said firmly. "The mineral they're extracting, Luminite, is biologically linked to both your people and the Phantoms. Their mining is already causing harm." Director Harlow stepped forward, his smile tight. "Commander Davis exaggerates the situation. Our extraction methods can be adjusted to minimize impact." "Minimize, not eliminate," Riker countered. Then, acting on instinct, he placed one hand on the Phantom's head and reached for Inoya with the other. The moment their three-way contact was complete, a surge of energy flowed between them. The Phantom's memories flooded into Riker's mind, generations of guardians protecting the sacred caves, the pain when mining drills pierced the Luminite veins, the fear for vulnerable cubs. Simultaneously, he felt Inoya's consciousness, her people's history intertwined with the Phantoms, ancient rituals celebrating their shared connection to the glowing stone. Most surprisingly, both Inoya and the Phantom received flashes of Riker's memories: Earth's history of environmental exploitation, the Federation's founding principles to prevent such mistakes on other worlds, his personal commitment to protecting the innocent. When they broke contact, the entire village square had fallen silent. Even Harlow and his entourage stood transfixed by the spectacle of human, Lumina, and Phantom joined in apparent communion. "What just happened?" Harlow demanded, his corporate polish cracking. Inoya stepped forward, her markings glowing with newfound intensity. "The sacred bond has been awakened. This human has been chosen by the Azure Guardian as a bridge between our worlds." She turned to address her people. "The glowing stone these outsiders seek is our lifeblood, the source of our connection to this world and to each other, and their mining will destroy what makes us Lumina." The Phantom growled in agreement, its fur bristling as it stared down Harlow and his guards. "This is absurd," Harlow scoffed. "Primitive superstition shouldn't stand in the way of progress." "It's not superstition," Riker said firmly. "It's biology, ecology, and sovereignty. The Lumina and the Phantoms share a symbiotic relationship with the Luminite. Your mining disrupts that balance." Chief Thalos raised his hand for attention. "Director Harlow, we must decline your offer. Our connection to the sacred stone is not for sale." Harlow's pleasant mask fell away completely. "You primitives have no idea of the value of what you're sitting on. The Federation may play nice, but Nexus Industries has ways of acquiring what it needs." "Is that a threat?" Riker asked quietly, his hand resting on the Phantom's head. "It's business," Harlow replied coldly. "We'll be in touch." With that, he signaled his entourage to withdraw. As the corporate representatives departed, Korath approached Riker. "They will return with force," he stated grimly. "Then we'll be ready," Riker replied. He looked at Inoya, whose eyes shone with a mixture of determination and something more intimate. "The connection we share, it's stronger than I realized. The bonding we shared last night," she said softly, her fingers intertwining with his. "It deepened our connection to the Luminite network. My people have legends of such bonds, but they were thought to be just stories." "Not stories," Chief Thalos said, approaching them. "Sacred history, forgotten until now." He looked at Riker with new respect. "It seems the stars have sent us a guardian when we needed one most." That night, as the village prepared for potential conflict, Riker and Inoya retreated to the sacred cave where the elders conducted their most important rituals. The walls glowed with veins of Luminite, bathing their bodies in soft blue light as they came together again, their passion heightened by the shared mental connection that allowed each to feel the other's pleasure as their own. In the afterglow, as they lay entwined on a bed of soft moss, Riker traced the luminescent patterns on Inoya's skin. "We need to find a way to protect the Luminite without bloodshed," he murmured. Inoya's eyes lit up suddenly. "Perhaps there is a way, through the very connection that binds us." Dawn broke over Nebulon 6 with an eerie silence. The jungle, usually alive with sounds, seemed to hold its breath in anticipation of the coming conflict. Riker stood at the village perimeter, his wrist communicator displaying the disappointing message from Federation Command. Diplomatic intervention delayed. Corporate rights dispute requires review. Maintain position and avoid escalation. Bureaucracy, he muttered, shutting off the device. Useless when you need it most. Your people will not help? Korath asked, approaching with a group of Lumina warriors, their bodies painted with intricate patterns that enhanced their natural markings. Not in time, Riker replied. We're on our own. Enoya joined them, her silver hair braided for battle, adorned with small shards of luminite that made her glow even in daylight. The sight of her stirred something primal in Riker. Their night in the sacred cave had bound them in ways that transcended physical pleasure. Every touch, every kiss had deepened their connection to each other and to the luminite network, until it felt as though their souls had intertwined. Then we fight with what we have, she said, her blue eyes fierce with determination. The Azure Guardian has shown me something remarkable about the sacred stone. She led them to the edge of the village where the adult phantom waited, surrounded by a small pack of its kind, 5 more massive predators that had answered some silent call. Holy shit, Riker breathed, earning a smile from Enoya, who had grown fond of his human expressions. The luminite evolves when threatened, she explained. It has defensive properties that activate when those connected to it are in danger. That's why previous attempts to mine it failed. The mineral itself fought back. But Nexus has better technology now, Riker pointed out. Technology cannot overcome the sacred bond, Korath said with newfound conviction, not when it is strengthened by unity. Riker studied the assembled warriors, the pack of phantoms, and the woman who had captured his heart across the stars. A plan began to form in his mind, one that played to their strengths rather than trying to match Nexus's firepower. We don't need to defeat their entire operation, he said. Just convince them that mining here costs more than it's worth. By midday, their preparations were complete. Scouts reported that Nexus forces were mobilizing on armed personnel carriers and mining mechs advancing through the jungle toward the village. Riker gathered everyone for final instructions. Remember, we're not trying to win a war, just make a point. Use the jungle, use your connection to the luminite, and above all, stay alive. He turned to Enoya, pulling her close for a moment that felt both private and eternal despite the eyes upon them. Ready to show these corporate suits what happens when they mess with your world? Her markings pulsed with a pattern he now recognized as love. Ready to show them what happens when they face a human who understands the true power of connection. The Nexus forces arrived with the subtlety of a supernova, crashing through the jungle in armored vehicles, cutting down ancient trees to clear a path. Director Harlow led from a hovering command platform, his white suit immaculate despite the humid jungle air. Final chance to negotiate, he called through an amplifier as his forces formed a perimeter around the village clearing. Surrender mining rights or be relocated by force. Riker stepped forward alone, unarmed, the picture of calm defiance. You might want to reconsider that position, Director. Harlow laughed. One man against my security force. I admire your courage, Commander, misplaced though it is. Not one man, Riker replied with a smile. One connection. He placed his hand on a nearby tree trunk, where a vein of luminite ran just beneath the bark. Instantly, the mineral began to glow brighter, the light spreading from tree to tree throughout the jungle like a network awakening. On cue, the phantoms emerged from the undergrowth, surrounding the Nexus forces. Not attacking, just present, their fur glowing with the same intensity as the luminite veins. What is this? Harlow demanded, his confidence wavering. This, Riker said, is what happens when you threaten a world that's more connected than you understood. As if responding to his words, the ground beneath the mining equipment began to shimmer. Veins of luminite pushed up through the soil, wrapping around treads and drills, immobilizing the machinery. The mineral glowed hotter where it touched metal, beginning to melt through critical components. Impossible, Harlow whispered, watching as his expensive equipment was systematically disabled by what he had dismissed as a simple resource. The Lumina warriors emerged next, their markings pulsing in perfect synchronization with the phantoms and the luminite veins. They carried no weapons but moved with absolute confidence. The sacred stone protects its own, Anoya declared, stepping to Riker's side. It has evolved over millennia to defend against those who would exploit it. One of the Nexus guards panicked and fired his rifle. The energy bolt struck a patch of exposed luminite and was absorbed, the mineral glowing brighter before releasing the energy back in a diffuse wave that knocked several guards off their feet without causing serious harm. "Stand down!" Harlow ordered his forces, his face pale. "Stand down immediately!" Riker approached the hovering command platform, the lead Phantom padding silently beside him. "Here's what's going to happen, Director. You're going to leave this planet and report to your board that mining here is unfeasible, too dangerous, too costly." "And why would I do that?" Harlow asked, though his bravado had evaporated. "Because," Riker said, reaching up to place one hand on the platform's edge, causing its systems to flicker as luminite energy interfered with the circuitry. "The alternative is explaining how you lost an entire expedition and millions in equipment to a primitive superstition." The platform lurched, nearly throwing Harlow off balance. The Phantom growled, its violet eyes fixed on the Director. "Fine," Harlow spat. "We're leaving, but the Federation will hear about this interference with corporate interests." "I'm counting on it," Riker replied with a grin. Within hours, the Nexus forces had retreated, their damaged equipment abandoned in the jungle. As the last transport lifted off, cheers erupted from the Lumina village. That evening, a celebration unlike any Riker had witnessed unfolded. The village glowed with luminite-enhanced decorations. Music filled the air, and for the first time, phantoms roamed freely among the Lumina. The ancient fear replaced by newfound respect. Chief Thalos approached Riker, who stood with his arm around Anoya's waist. "You have restored an ancient balance, Commander. The Azure Guardians were never our enemies, but our protectors, a truth forgotten through generations of fear." "Humans have a talent for building bridges," Riker said, squeezing Anoya gently. "Sometimes between worlds, sometimes between species." "Will you return to your Federation now?" the Chief asked. Riker looked at Anoya, whose markings pulsed with the question she couldn't voice aloud. "Actually, I was thinking of requesting a permanent diplomatic posting here. Someone needs to ensure Nexus doesn't try again, and..." He smiled at Anoya. "I've found something worth staying for." Later, as they lay together in the sacred cave, their bodies entwined in the afterglow of passion, Anoya traced the contours of Riker's face. "You never truly tamed the Azure Phantom, did you?" Riker chuckled. "No one tames something that magnificent. I just showed it respect." "Yet you tamed me," she teased, her markings pulsing with playful light. "I think it was the other way around," he replied, pulling her closer. "Humans may look tough, but we're suckers for a woman who can glow in the dark." Her laughter echoed through the cave, mingling with the soft purr of the Phantom that guarded the entrance. No longer a feared beast, but a partner in protecting the world they all now shared. Outside, beneath the alien moons, the jungle of Nebulon 6 pulsed with renewed life. The Luminite network strengthened by the most unexpected connection of all. A human who understood that the greatest power in the universe wasn't technology or weapons, but the ability to forge bonds across the stars.